The first sound I heard that Saturday morning was a gunshot. And let me tell you nothing. Ruins coffee and bacon faster than realizing your HOA rent-a-cop just pulled a pistol on your daughter. 1 second it was birdsong and sunshine, the next it was pure chaos, the kind that makes your body move before your brain catches up. I hit the front door so hard it slammed into the wall, ran onto the porch, and there she was. My daughter Claire, standing calm as a fence post with a gun pointed at her chest, like this was just some annoying interruption to her weekend. My heart tried to punch its way out of my body. If you didn't know Claire, you'd think she was the one in trouble. Jeans, old sneakers, faded FBI Academy hoodie, hair tied back, no visible weapon, no badge in her hand, nothing about her screaming federal tactical commander. She looked like any woman stopping by her parents' place with donuts and a smile. Doug looked like exactly what he was, a man with a golf cart, a clipboard, and half an ounce of authority he had mistaken for a crown. That morning had started so normal it was almost insulting. The sun was bright, the lawns were freshly mowed, somebody nearby was frying bacon, and Claire had come by after her last assignment just to sit, drink coffee, and catch up. She parked her Jeep half over what used to be a visitor spot, except the paint on the curb had faded so badly it looked like a memory of a rule nobody followed anymore. Nobody except Doug. I heard him before I saw him, that nasal bark of his, followed by the squeal of his battered HOA golf cart as he came flying across the street. Claire had barely stepped back outside with her coffee when he jumped out, waving his clipboard, and demanded she move the Jeep. She asked where the sign was. He sputtered. She asked where the posted rule was. He got louder. Then he demanded identification. Claire just leaned against the Jeep, crossed her arms, and smiled the way she does when somebody is about to embarrass himself in public. She told him she was visiting family and didn't see any visible restriction. Doug's face went from pink to red in 2 seconds. He started ranting about community guidelines, then unwritten standards, which tells you everything right there. Claire said she wasn't handing over ID to an HOA security officer over a parking dispute. That should have ended it. Any sane person would have grumbled and called a tow truck. Doug was not sane where pretend authority was concerned. He pulled the gun. I froze. There are moments when time doesn't slow down exactly, it just gets louder. I could hear my own pulse, a mower somewhere down the block, a screen door opening 2 houses over, somebody gasping behind a hedge. I stepped off the porch, and Claire gave me the tiniest shake of her head. Stay back. Doug kept yelling about suspicious person, citizens arrest, preserving neighborhood integrity. Neighbors started spilling onto driveways and porches. Phones came up. Then he racked the slide on the pistol. That changed the air instantly. The whole street went cold. Claire didn't flinch. If anything, she looked more relaxed, like she was dealing with an angry chihuahua that had somehow found a firearm. Her voice got quieter, steadier. She asked Doug if he really wanted to keep going. He screamed for her to get on the ground. She told him calm as ever that he was making a mistake he could not undo. His finger twitched on the trigger. Then Claire moved slow, deliberate, one hand slipping into her hoodie pocket. Doug jerked the gun higher, shouting something about weapons. For one hideous second, I thought he was actually going to shoot my daughter over a faded parking line. Instead, Claire pulled out a slim black credential wallet, flicked it open, and held it up in the sunlight. The badge flashed so bright I swear the whole street blinked. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Doug's mouth opened, nothing useful came out, and the crowd went dead silent. Claire's voice when she spoke was cool enough to frost glass. She told him he had just brandished a firearm at a federal officer, unlawfully detained a private citizen, and done it in front of half the neighborhood and about 20 phones. Then she asked almost gently if he had anything he wanted to say before she called it in. Doug's gun hand started to sag. He looked around for support, but all he found were neighbors filming him. He started stammering about HOA authority, community protection protocols rights. Claire touched the mic clipped inside her hoodie and spoke into it in the crispest voice I've ever heard. Dispatch, this is Agent Claire Matthews. I have an armed individual threatening a federal officer. Immediate backup requested. Location transmitting now. Doug's knees buckled. The gun hit the pavement. He dropped right after it, hands up, babbling that he didn't know, didn't mean it, thought he was doing his job. Sirens rose in the distance, growing louder by the second. I finally crossed the lawn, not running anymore, because by then, Claire already had control. Then Claire asked him one question that landed like a brick. Are you even licensed to carry that firearm? He blinked, started rambling about constitutional rights and neighborhood watch, but never answered, And right there I knew. He either didn't have a permit or he wasn't authorized to carry while pretending to be community lawman or both. The crowd knew it too. Then Karen showed up. Every HOA has one, the woman who mistakes control for virtue and thinks a binder is a personality. Karen came storming down the sidewalk, clutching a stack of bylaws. She barely looked at the gun on the ground. She went straight to indignation, demanding to know why there was a crowd, why Claire was still there, why a non-resident was disrupting the neighborhood. Then she saw the badge. A smarter person would have shut up. Karen was not a smarter person. She lifted her chin and announced that this was HOA jurisdiction. HOA jurisdiction, like she was governing a sovereign nation instead of a neat little row of houses. Claire barely turned her head. She said that an armed civilian had threatened a federal officer, and any interference from this point on could become obstruction. Karen kept going anyway. Claimed Claire could be impersonating law enforcement, claimed the HOA had authority to detain suspicious individuals, claimed Doug was acting under board directives. And there it was. Board directives. The second those words left Karen's mouth, half the street reacted. Claire's eyes sharpened just a little. She asked Karen to repeat herself. Karen tried to backpedal, started talking about safety committees and enforcement powers, but it was too late. Claire asked one simple question. Had the board authorized Doug to carry a firearm, detain residents, or confront visitors? Karen said nothing, which was answer enough. By the time the squad cars rolled in, 3 of them, fast lights flashing blue across every SUV in the cul-de-sac, the whole thing had tipped from neighborhood gossip into criminal stupidity. Officers spilled out, took one look at Claire's credentials, Doug on his knees, the gun on the pavement, Karen gripping her binder like it might save her, and got to work. Claire briefed them in under a minute. One officer secured the weapon. Another cuffed Doug. A third pulled Karen aside when she tried to wedge herself into the briefing with a speech about bylaws. The sergeant who showed up looked like she had exactly 0 patience for suburban dictators. Karen shoved papers at her, demanding Claire be arrested too, claiming entrapment and intimidation. The sergeant glanced at the binder, then asked the only question that mattered. "Ma'am, did your board authorize this man to carry a firearm and confront residents?" Karen tried to pivot. Big mistake. Because 2 neighbors stepped forward right then. Lynn, a retired Marine, and Mrs. Harrow, of all people. Turns out Doug had pulled versions of this routine before, no gun, but plenty of threats. Mrs. Harrow had saved emails. Lynn had notes from a board meeting where Karen floated the idea of giving Doug real enforcement presence. Claire hadn't just exposed one idiot with a pistol. She'd cracked open a kingdom built on bluff fear and people assuming nobody would challenge it. Doug got loaded into the back of a cruiser, pale as drywall. Karen didn't go in cuffs that morning, but she came close. The sergeant warned her that if those documents checked out, obstruction might be the least of her problems. Watching Karen finally fall silent was one of the most satisfying moments of my adult life. After the cruisers pulled away, the street stayed weirdly quiet. Just that stunned hush after a storm. Claire came back inside, took the fresh coffee I handed her, sat at the kitchen table, and asked if the neighborhood was always this dramatic. I laughed so hard I almost scared myself. Later that afternoon, the fallout started. Videos hit local Facebook groups, then community pages, then everywhere else. By Monday, the HOA board had called an emergency meeting. By Tuesday, Doug was terminated, banned from any HOA enforcement role, and facing charges. By the end of the week, Karen had resigned for personal reasons, which is suburban code for got caught and jumped before the fire hit the curtains. And here's the part that stayed with me. It wasn't the gun. Not really. It was how fast a person can convince himself he's righteous when nobody checks him, how quickly petty authority turns rotten when it gets mixed with ego and fear. Doug thought a title made him powerful. Karen thought rules made her untouchable. But all that fake power vanished the second it met someone who actually knew the law and didn't need to scream to prove it. Real authority usually doesn't posture. It doesn't bark. It doesn't wave a weapon around over a parking spot. Real authority is quiet, precise, and when it finally moves, the performance ends. That morning, my daughter didn't save herself by being louder than Doug. She saved herself by staying steady while he unraveled in front of everybody. And maybe that's the ugliest truth in all this. Some people don't want order, they want permission to dominate. They don't care about safety. They care about feeling bigger than somebody else. So yeah, Karma showed up in our cul-de-sac wearing body armor and carrying handcuffs, and I won't lie, it was beautiful. But tell me this. When people like Doug and Karen hide behind rules, titles, and community standards, where do you think the line is between keeping order and abusing power? And if you've ever dealt with somebody who confused authority with ownership, drop your story in the comments. I want to know how you handled it.